Some people, you never forget where you were when you first saw them or heard about them. And for me, Ozzy Osbourne was one of those people. I was sent to a farm in Iceland as a kid, and one day I was listening to the radio and some guy was describing how Ozzy descended on the stage like a bat from the ceiling. And I thought to myself, this is something different. I need to know more. I was probably around 12 years old. This is pre-internet. There was no music magazines. We had one newspaper, 1.5 radio station, and people like Ozzy were never on the television. So all you had to go by was hearsay and rumors. And a guy like Ozzy, the stories were plenty. He bit the head off a bat, he bit the head off a pigeon, he drank blood, he snorted ants, he was the son of the devil. It was endless. These and a million more whisper stories made this guy look more like some sort of a demonic beast than a singer in a metal band. And that to me made him even more fascinating. I didn't want to run away from this. I actually wanted to become Ozzy Osbourne when I grew up. Later on, that same radio station played Crazy Train, and that was it. Something just clicked. I knew I needed to get to know his music, like really know it. And eventually I got my hands on a mixtape with a lot of Ozzy songs. But to this day, I still think that Crazy Train is one of the best songs ever written. So I blasted this tape for hours on my Sony Walkman. Just me and the tractor on the dirt road, Ozzy in my ears. This was my Crazy Train. Then the years passed and I got used to having Ozzy somehow in my life, but then came that VHS tape of the Moscow Peace Festival, and that is a tape that I've probably watched more than any other tape in my life. Seeing Ozzy there with some of the younger rock stars at an event that was supposed to be promoting sobriety against drugs and alcohol was so bizarre, but in some way so much Ozzy somehow. And later I would find out through his biography and also through the biographies of some of the bands that were there with him that Ozzy might not have been the best company for up-and-coming rock stars. The thing I've admired the most about Ozzy is his resiliency. He was a survivor with some insane comeback skills. Whenever everybody thought he was down and out, Ozzy would pop up again. And his biography is probably the best book I ever read in my life. It's raw, it's hilarious, it's painful, but it's also very inspiring. But the thing is, guys, I never managed to see my hero live. And to be honest, I can't explain why, because those of you who know me, you know that sometimes I see over 100 bands per year. And twice I actually had tickets to a show. One I couldn't make it to in the end, and the other time he had to cancel. So our path never crossed. And that is a regret that I carry with me forever. And that's especially painful because in later years, I really started to understand the impact that Ozzy and Black Sabbath had on the whole genre. Because without Ozzy and Sabbath, metal might have evolved completely differently or might not have evolved at all to the form that we know today. And with such great impact, it's tempting to think that this was a band and individuals that had it all planned out, but they didn't. Let's take the song Paranoid as an example. The story is that this song was written in some 15 to 20 minutes in the studio because they had more space on the vinyl. Think about that. This eventually is a song that shaped the whole genre. Almost didn't happen. It just happened because they had space. That would never happen in today's digital world. So it's hard to imagine metal without Paranoid. And we have people like Ozzy to thank for it. I never watched the Osbournes on TV. I've seen some clips from it, but I never watched the full episode. I wanted to see Ozzy the rock star, not Ozzy the reality TV star. I wanted the guy that came descending down from the ceiling, the myth and the madman. Because the strange thing is that even when I drifted into different stuff, heavier stuff, more mainstream stuff, Ozzy somehow always stayed with me. Whatever he released, I checked out. There were a lot of other bands that I totally abandoned, but never Ozzy. And in recent years, after getting involved with the scene a little bit with metal and rock song, I realized something. It doesn't really matter where you start in metal. Somehow all roads lead to Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath. When the Back to the Beginning event was announced, I was 100% sure that this would be my chance to see my legend live. But unfortunately, after 4 different tries, I didn't get any tickets. But I watched the whole stream online. Seeing all these bands celebrate Ozzy and Sabbath wasn't really a surprise to me. If someone like me, who's really a nobody in the grand scheme, understands what Ozzy and Sabbath really means, then every artist up there knows that without Ozzy and Sabbath, their career might not exist. The highlight of this event was not the guests, not the show, not the spectacle. It was the fire in Ozzy's eyes, the determination, that one last show. And I'll admit it, somewhere in the back of my mind I had this morbid thought. Probably he's gonna die on stage doing what he loves the most. And I know this sounds bad and it would have been an awful event to watch, but it says so much about Ozzy that you even think this. The guy was always unpredictable. After losing someone very close to me way too early, Ozzy's song, See You on the Other Side, became sacred to me. Because that track helped me through the grief and the pain in ways that I can never explain, and it still does. Ozzy started as an intriguing myth in my mind, but he ended up being a man that I admire and respected very much. And maybe what made Ozzy so great and iconic wasn't all the chaos and madness around him, but in some way, the way that he actually managed to survive it and outlive it all. And I'm just grateful for having lived in a time where Ozzy was still with us. The man might have left the building, but the legacy lives. Ozzy, thank you for everything. I'll see you on the other side.